The need for alliance management in creating these longer-term relationships has really been one of our key learnings. Actually dedicating personnel to be a steward of that relationship, to make sure that the company is seeing continuing value in the partnership with the university, and also to ensure that our faculty and the university leadership are seeing the value in that partnership.
Hello and welcome to the Strategic Partnerships podcast series. My name is Madeline Arkins. I'm a Research Project Officer at UIIN and your host for today. During the 2023 UIIN Conference, we had an insightful conversation with Kelly Sexton, Associate Vice President of Research and Innovation Partnerships at the University of Michigan. Join us as we delve into the role of strategic partnerships in economic growth and the vital influence of policies that can act as catalysts for fostering thriving university-industry partnerships. I am here today with Kelly Sexton, Associate Vice President of Research and Innovation Partnerships at the University of Michigan. Today, I would like to ask you, how do you see strategic partnerships in universities play a role in driving economic growth? Do they play a role?
Absolutely, they do. So I'd like to frame the question by talking a little bit about our model. So Innovation Partnerships at the University of Michigan has three core groups: corporate research alliances, licensing and tech transfer, and ventures. So we support all aspects of research commercialization at the university, going from strategic research collaborations, supporting licensing and other mechanisms of moving technology out into the world, and the formation of new companies and startups. So first and foremost, when I think about research partnerships with companies, that can be one of our most effective tools for moving university research and technologies and discoveries out into the world. The companies already exist. They have product distribution mechanisms. They're robust and mature. Those relationships can actually be great ways to move these technologies out into practice. In addition, we're often finding that when companies are interested in partnering with a university, that yes, they want to know about our faculty and their research expertise and their ongoing research programs, but increasingly we're seeing that they also want to be connected with our startup companies. And because of our unique structure, because we're also responsible for supporting startup company formation, maintaining relationships with those startups, connecting them with resources, with the investment community, we can be a source of connecting startup companies with potential strategic partnerships with big companies. And those can take a variety of forms. Sometimes it looks like a research collaboration between the big company and the startup. Sometimes they become investors. Sometimes they become customers. Sometimes they eventually want to watch the company for a while and potentially become an acquirer. But that can be just another wonderful way of, to your original question, driving economic growth by helping make those connections and help those smaller companies access the resources of the larger businesses.
Great that you can pass on those relationships to startups in your ecosystem. That's great to hear. Another question I had was related to successful collaborations and successful partnerships. In your experience, what are the key drivers of success when you're navigating these relationships?
Yeah. So I think one is you need a commitment for this to be a long-term engagement. And I think that happens both on the company end. They're going to need to allocate some resources to having someone tasked with understanding all aspects of the business needs and communicating and translating those needs to the university. On the university side, we also need to be patient and we need to allocate resources to take that input and then connect it with our faculty and work with our faculty to find alignment between their research interests and objectives and the company's interests. And we all know there can be cultural differences between the corporate world and the academic world, as an understatement. There's different time frames, there's different drivers. Our faculty often are first and foremost concerned with creating new knowledge and educating the next generation of researchers and innovators and leaders. And one of the primary mechanisms for their career advancement and that of their trainees is in the form of publication. And on the university side, we have to find ways to align all of those interests with the needs of the company. And this can be done. It requires being patient, working to explain the cultural differences on both sides, working to set terms of a research agreement that will meet the university's requirements and expectations while still delivering on the timeline and goals of the companies. So all of these things are absolutely possible, and we do them every day. It just requires thinking of this engagement not as a one-off transactional relationship um, or transactional engagement, but really as a longer-term relationship.
Yeah, always a balancing act, I think, when you're balancing those interests. I was also interested, I know in your background, you started off in like TTO and contracts licensing, and now you're in a more leadership role. And I think from both those vantage points, you hear different pain points of the strategic partnerships commercialization routes. In your experience, when you see challenges come about in this process, how do you overcome them?
Yes. So again, I think it goes back to the structure of our office has been really helpful because we all have aligned interests and goals across our three teams. And ultimately, we want to see the research that happens on campus have positive societal benefit out in the world. Because of our organization, one of the key challenges that can happen in these relationships is when there is background intellectual property that may need to be a part of an ongoing research collaboration. Because our office is already managing that background intellectual property and already has a trusted relationship with the faculty member where we've been helping them as stewards of this intellectual property to help develop it over time, we can help counsel them on how to appropriately involve or not involve that background intellectual property in the research engagement with the company. Because our office also wants to see these research engagements happen, because that's part of our mandate, we're really incentivized to find a path forward, even when it's complicated, even when there may be a startup company involved or a large background intellectual property portfolio. We have the capacity and the creativity on our team to help find a path forward and make it work.
I had another question. I wonder if, in looking at University of Michigan's model to partnerships, have there been any, let's say, top achievements or top learnings over the course of your journey with partnerships?
Yeah, I think one of our learnings is the importance of alliance management. And so it can be really wonderful to announce we have this new research partnership, this new research collaboration, but actually dedicating personnel to be a steward of that relationship, to make sure that the company is seeing continuing value in the partnership with the university, and also to ensure that our faculty and the university leadership are seeing the value in that partnership, that we're continuously connecting new faculty with that research opportunity. The need for alliance management in creating these longer term relationships has really been one of our key learnings.
I know internal structures within a university are nearly equally as important in terms of encouraging and incentivizing external engagement among academics. Are there any support structures or mechanisms that University of Michigan would use that you could speak about?
One of the things that we found on our campus to be true is that in many cases, our faculty can be our best business development personnel ever. They go to conferences, they know the industry leaders in their field, they have great connections. And how we can be most impactful is actually by helping them turn those relationships and conversations into strategic research collaborations. Our internal structure is such that we provide faculty-facing support to help them when they have a concept, they want to pitch it to the company, they want to move forward with a research engagement, to help them really frame it in the early days to make sure that we're going to have that alignment with their research program, their objectives for their lab, for their research, for their publication trajectory, and to help them come up with a framework and then go with them to those early meetings with the company, help have those conversations, and really help set it up for success from the outset. So this faculty-facing support is something fairly new at the University of Michigan. We've been at it for not quite 2 years now, but we're already seeing the impact of taking that approach.
Nice. I like
the thought of considering staff as your best business developer, because they certainly are on the front line of everything that's happening. Maybe I might ask a question about how you navigate relationships that change over time. Certain partnerships may not always fit the purpose once the partnership has began. Is there a way that the University of Michigan, or maybe you think, to evaluate these relationships as they grow and develop?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think we have to demonstrate value, of course, to university leadership. They're investing in our office as a key infrastructure to support the research enterprise. So we're constantly tracking where we're spending our time and what those metrics and KPIs are. And as you're saying, research relationships do evolve over time. Companies' needs change over time. Maybe it's certain parts in their business cycle, they may be more inclined to university research engagement than others. And so we're staffed in a way that we can scale up or down our alliance management support in response to really where that relationship is. So if that one is slowing down and or perhaps sunsetting, it's okay. We have many other opportunities where we can allocate that really crucial alliance management support and scale it up to support a new relationship that's developing. Maybe while the other partner is on a pause, maybe going through a reorganization, and then we can come back to that relationship. We want to come back to it. But having flexibility really internally in how we allocate resources to support those relationships is one of the ways that we can try to be responsive just to changes in the business cycle.
One other thing that came to my mind as we were talking, I wondered if there was anything policy-wise currently, nationally, or even institutionally, that is either a facilitator or maybe an impediment to partnerships.
One thing that is really fundamental to the American innovation ecosystem is the Bayh-Dole Act. And it's been around for so long that I think we can sometimes take it for granted. But it was really crucial in establishing that universities in the US can own the research discoveries and the new innovations, the inventions that are created on our campus using federal research support. So whether the grant comes from the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, Department of Defense, Department of Energy, on, the university can own those resulting innovations. And then we are tasked with being the stewards of that intellectual property and in licensing it to the private sector in ways that drive economic prosperity in the country. This is absolutely foundational to everything that we do. So when you're thinking about, of course, traditional tech transfer, where we're patenting and licensing, clearly, startup company formation, very important. But also when we're working with companies, because as I was saying before, usually when a company is going to sponsor research on a university campus, there is some background intellectual property that might ultimately need to be a part of that research collaboration. The fact that we have clear title and ownership to that intellectual property makes things so much smoother when we're moving forward with this new research engagement. If we didn't have the Bayh-Dole Act, we would have cloudy title to the intellectual property. It might actually be owned by the federal agency. A company might not be sure if they invested the time and the effort in developing this new innovation that they'd ultimately be able to have the licensing rights to it. Even though it's been around since 1980, I think it's really important to remember that every aspect of university research commercialization, from startups to licensing to strategic research partnerships with industry, requires a very strong and robust Bayh-Dole Act as our policy framework.
Thank you for listening to the discussion. Follow UIN on LinkedIn, and if you're enjoying our podcasts, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on your podcast platform of choice to help others find this content too.